Thank you all for being with us today. Jay Ziebart, nutritionist and health educator, and I'm Megan Mesher-Cox. We host this disease prevention and reversal summit and hope to be able to provide more information out there. So good information that's really evidence-based healthcare information and truly lifestyle medicine. Okay, so our next speaker is Jay, and her talk is gut, you and your gut health, you and your trillions. Trillions of bacteria, but I'm assuming, but we'll hear from Jay. Jay, if you all have not been introduced to Jay, Jay is a nutritionist. She actually used to work for one of the big health systems, Dignity Health, doing education. She ran the plant-based classes for Dignity Health, and actually that's how I got to know Jay myself. She decided to go off on her own. She wanted to, at the beginning of the pandemic actually, to really follow her heart and be able to help as many people as possible, really spread her wings and to help. So, and she's done exactly that. So I'll hand it over to you. So please, let's hear what you have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Cox. So this has been a really beautiful experience. And this happens every time I do any of these lifestyle medicine focused conferences. Anytime you're watching, it's just, you hear the same message over and over and over again. It's not like, us as healthcare professionals spend a lot of time together because we are very, very busy doing our own things, but you see the same consistent message over and over and over and over. What does that tell you? That tells you that the science is quite clear. And we, all of us here, all of our beautiful speakers today, and we have one more after me that I'm really excited about, Dr. Megan's presentation as well, that it is so important. It is so important that we take time out of our day to do this for free because we want to make sure that everybody has this information. So let me go ahead and get into gut health. So you and your trillions, what I'm talking about there are your microbes. So you are going to hear two words very often related to the subject, and that is microbiome and microbiota. So microbiome is the actual environment, and the microbiota are the actual organisms. We are more microbiota than we are human. So we live in symbiosis with these microbes. There are all sorts of microbes. Most often we'll hear about the bacteria, but there are many others as well. So I'm going to get into some of this. I mean, this subject is it's so all-encompassing when it comes to our health that we could spend all week talking about this. So I just want to give you some basics and hopefully some really easily applied takeaway tips. And you're going to hear a lot of the same things that you heard from our other speakers and a lot of the same things you'll hear from our speakers for the rest of this morning. So as I said, trillions of microbes that are living with us in symbiosis. What does that mean? It means that the good ones are helping us and we are feeding them. So it's this whole beautiful relationship that we have with them. For so long, I know when I was a kid, it was bacteria bad, but there are so many good bacteria that are helping us to do a variety of things. And I'm going to show you some of those here. So what is important when it comes to our microbiome, our microbiota? We want robust and varied colonies. So it's all about the balance. It's all about the balance. And so this is going to come in as important in a little bit because it's not about, anytime we have something that's really, really good for us, we think more, but more is not always better. So we want to have the right amount of the good stuff. We want to have a nice, beautiful variety, and we want the right colonies to be flourishing in balance with each other. So there are lots of different types of organism tens of thousands of different kinds. And so we don't want to focus on just one. We want the nice balance, and we want those communities, the good bacteria and other microbes, to be flourishing. How do we do that? One of the most important things you can do is feed them. If you don't feed them, they will die. And so we want to make sure that we're feeding them on a daily basis. The beautiful thing there is that they feed us back. They help us to digest our food, and they literally give us chemicals to help nourish our bodies and to protect us. And so we want to keep that beautiful relationship going. So consistently eating those good foods. So let's say we have an imbalance. So people on the SAD, the Standard American Diet, it's very, very common to hear of people with digestive issues, diarrhea, constipation, some combination, as well as many other things, right? So what are some of the risks? And these are just, some of the most important ones. There are many, many things associated with imbalances in our microbiota. So we call that dysbiosis. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disorders, like fatty liver and inflammation. So what we want to do is we want to get a good, beautiful variety of colonies in glorious balance. Now, maybe you might be thinking, okay, well, how am I supposed to even know that? But we do have some strategies that are relatively simple to apply, if not easy. So the concepts are simple, and then we develop the habits to support those. So let me show you what some of those are. So as I mentioned, it can have a significant impact on your weight, on your hormones, on inflammation in the body. These microbes actually help you to digest your foods. So occasionally if somebody will come to me and say, I'm having trouble or I can't eat this food, it might be that we don't have the right kind of microbes to help us to break down those foods, because we need these microbes. And it also impacts our immune system in a significant way. You've already seen it in other presentations, and I'm sure you'll see it in Dr. Lowe's as well. We need a healthy microbiome in order to support our immune system. So this whole subject of the microbiome, the microbiota, is this beautiful emerging science. And, so much has come out just in the past few years. It is really just kind of disseminating right now. So, you're going to hear it from people that are experts, and I'm going to give you a recommendation for an awesome book. But there's a lot of information that we don't really understand. So what we do understand, what we do feel like we have a good grasp on, I'm going to share with you. And I highly recommend that you keep an eye out on this research. My fantasy is that someday, and there are some companies out there that are starting to get into this, is that you can actually send in a sample of your poop, because that's what it's all about. That's how the best way to see what's going on. And they're going to be able to say, oh, well, it looks like you're a little low in this, eat more of that. I mean, it's going to be a really tailored health sort of outcome. And that's really my fantasy when it comes to this field. It is just really, really cool. So some of the things that you can do to improve the health of your microbiota. So eat the fiber-filled foods. So you've heard it before, and you will hear it again from any lifestyle medicine, healthcare professionals, anybody that has really delved into the science about how to nourish your body really, really well. Fiber is one of our most deficient nutrients in this country. So you heard Dr. Stevens talk about 35 grams per day. That's generally anywhere between 28 and 35 is what the USDA recommends. But Americans are getting a third, maybe sometimes half that. Most people are getting around 15 grams. So, I mean, that is way off the mark. And as you'll see in the microbiome field, they're actually recommended even more than that. And I'm going to show you how easy that is to do. So don't get overwhelmed with it. It's totally doable. Fiber-filled foods. Everything that grows from the ground has fiber in it. Anything that doesn't go from the ground does not. So we want to get in a variety. So generally what's recommended, and this is based on some studies, and so this will firm up as the years go along, but it's not a bad idea anyways, because it gives you a wide variety of micronutrients, which is not a bad thing, right? For healing and protecting our bodies. And that's about 30 different plant foods a week. And I'm going to show you how easy that is. I promise it's not that hard. Stress management, manage that stress. Now I'm not talking about there's a little bit of stress that's good for us, that keeps us going, lights a little fire under our backside. That stress is okay. The chronic stress that makes us feel ill, that sits in our bodies, that feeling that fight or flight or freeze, that doesn't actually end up doing anything except for sitting in our bodies. That kind of stress we want to manage. Either avoid it or find ways to deal with it. Breathing, yoga, exercise, lots of different ways. Exercise. So we want to get in exercise every day, that has a significant impact on the health of our microbiome. So we really want to make sure that we are getting in our exercise, as Alex just mentioned, and avoiding the harmful stuff. So if anybody knows me, you know I'm all about the add more and crowding it out, getting in abundance, but also recognize that when we are eating these things, as our other speakers have talked about, you know, the animal foods, the highly processed foods, those are feeding the bad ones, the bad microbiomes, the pathogens. And so, sorry, the bad microbiota. So we want to avoid feeding those as much as humanly possible. And we want to really feed the good ones. So we maintain that healthy balance. All right, I'm gonna give you a couple specifics there too. So this little infographic is about leaky gut. Now, what we want to do is we have these cells that line our digestive tract. So our digestive tract is the most exposure we have to the outside world. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but if you think about the digestive tract, it's all of these wrinkles and folds, right? So that we have as much absorption as possible. And that means that there is much more surface area on the inside than on the outside. So that is our most protective layer inside there. So we want to maintain that healthy layer of really tight junctions in those cells. We don't want them opening up. We want those junctions to remain tight. We want a nice mucosal layer that protects our bloodstream from the things that are going through our digestive tract. So what helps maintain those healthy lining, the junctures nice and tight, and the mucosal lining? High fiber foods. Are you sensing a theme here? Cruciferous greens. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of sulforaphane, butyrate. There's all sorts of beautiful reasons to consume those cruciferous greens. The dark leafy greens have beautiful properties all by themselves. You add that cruciferous genus and you are getting potent protection. So much, not just in the things that I've mentioned, not just in the things that other speakers have mentioned, but many other ways it protects us. Get in those greens every day. High zinc foods. And so get in your lentils. Lentils are absolutely fantastic for a variety of reasons, but get in those lentils. And turmeric can also help maintaining that healthy lining. And turmeric also is anti-inflammatory. It also does other beautiful things. It's very potent antioxidant. So getting in those foods every day. Now, if you spent any time with me, you have seen these foods listed to get in daily, and a lot of other speakers and advocates for lifestyle medicine, nutrition, you're going to see these all the time. There are a wide range of reasons why you should be getting them in. These are some of them, but there are lots of others. So getting in that variety as well. So what can worsen? What can actually, make your lining not so healthy, starting to loosen up those junctures, reducing that mucosal layer? NSAIDs, so things like aspirin and ibuprofen. So talk to your doctor. If you need to take analgesics or pain medicine of any kind, just be cognizant that this can impact. And so if you have to take these things, just make sure that you're doing your best to really build up the health of that lining in other ways and avoiding other things that could be harming it, such as alcohol and food additives like artificial sweeteners and emulsifiers. So if you're looking at those ingredient lists, which I hope you are, every single time you go to buy a product, keep checking the ones you usually buy too, because sometimes they change. No artificial sweeteners and no emulsifiers or anything you can't pronounce or don't understand. Try and just get those whole foods in there. And then avoiding high saturated fat foods, because that can damage our lining as well. So animal foods, dairy, and any of the highly processed foods. So let's briefly go over biotics. So you probably heard of probiotics. So probiotics are actual, typically supplements that have live bacteria in them. Then you have prebiotics, which feed the pros. And then you have postbiotics, which you might not have heard of. That is, what is the result of putting those into your body. So we have the prebiotics that feed the pros. The probiotics are the actual bacteria. And when we, eat our food and chemicals are released, those beneficial chemicals, those are postbiotics. So just as a clarification, pre are what we feed, the pros that result in the post. So I highly recommend that you get in real food. This is also a theme you've been hearing all morning, right? Eat real food, avoiding supplements unless you need them, and check with your doctor to make sure that you actually need them, that you can't get them by adjusting your nutrition, and that you take the appropriate amount. Be very cautious about where you purchase your supplements as well. Make sure that they are tested for potency and safety by a third party. So these are things that you'll find in the store. Now, occasionally we need these things to help us with, acute or happening right now GI issues, tummy troubles, right? So that is, do what your GI doctor tells you to do there. But we don't want to be on these things long term. We want to feed those good microbes real food. Our bodies just understand how to deal with real food better than the supplements. So wherever possible, do that. And I call it these two on the right here. Those are not health foods. Those are highly processed, sugary desserts. They're not health food. So do your supplementation if you need to, but try to focus mostly, if not entirely, on eating whole foods to get in that good fiber. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Oops. So what about fermented foods? So fermented foods might be something that you've heard can be beneficial. And absolutely they can, especially for those of us who have lived on a standard American diet for most of our lives. We might actually have trouble building up those colonies. We might not have any of them. And so we really want to facilitate that process. So if you're finding that, for example, you've been really trying to up your fiber, but you're having trouble digesting it, you're having those issues, gas and bloating, et cetera, it's uncomfortable, then fermented foods might be something that can help with that. So the cool thing about fermented foods is they are both pre, as long as they have fiber in them, they're both pre and probiotics. Let's take this sauerkraut here at the top. So if it's fermented, using live cultures, then it has probiotics in there. It has actual bacteria. It's also prebiotic because that cabbage is feeding the pros as well. Same with pickles. Now, you want to make sure they have live, they're actually live. If they're on the dry, not refrigerated shelves, then they're likely not live. You really want to make sure it says live cultures on there. Now, something like kefir, for example, non-dairy, of course, kefir doesn't usually have fiber in it, and so it doesn't have the pre's in, but it'll definitely have the pros if it's live, okay? So why do we want to avoid the dairy? For all the things that everyone said before me, but also because dairy is very, very inflammatory. So if you're trying to help your gut health, you're trying to help your gut lining, and you're adding inflammatory foods, it's kind of like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It's not really going to work. So you really want to stay away from things like dairy and alcohol. One other thing is really just kind of be cautious, especially if you have high blood pressure, hypertension, about the sodium content, because sometimes they can be a little bit high. But these probiotics can absolutely be, probiotic foods can actually be something that helps you to build those robust colonies. What about supplements when it comes to probiotics? Again, this is a situation you'll want to do case by case, but generally what we're finding in the science is it's not recommended. Definitely not recommended for everyone, because remember the balance. So we won't want to be loading up on this one kind of bacteria or this small collection of bacteria and overshadowing the other beneficial bacteria. So you want to have a beautiful balance. So we don't have enough information to say for sure if this is helpful and that is not. So as of right now, probiotic supplements are generally not recommended for the general population. And then again, this is a situation that if you have stomach issues, they might be recommended by your specific situation. So deal with your healthcare professional on that end. We want to aim for variety. Now, I mentioned this already, and you've heard other people say the same. Aiming for about 30 different fiber-filled foods per week. Now, that might sound a little bit daunting. So let me give you an example of one typical day, not including snacks for me, not including snacks. So there's definitely more than this. And I plugged this quickly into Chronometer, and it was well over 50 grams of fiber for the day. Oats, flax, blueberries, banana, that's my oatmeal, not including the milk, which doesn't have any fiber in it. Kale, ginger, I love kale and ginger together, it's delicious. And I use fresh ginger as you saw in my demo earlier. Toast, chickpea, celery, pickles. That is my chickpea salad sandwich with some greens on the side. Typical lunch. Dinner, whole grain pasta, tomatoes, onions, garlic, pepper, carrots, spinach, olives, broccoli sprouts, and strawberries is a smoothie that I often do. I usually do other things in there as well, but I just wanted to show you how easily you could get this in on a daily basis. These are very simple meals, very quick to prepare, and nothing too unusual or strange in there, right? I mean, besides the broccoli sprouts are probably things that you've eaten before, maybe even regularly. That's 20 in one day. You absolutely can do this. Just make sure that your meals are plant powered, that your food is centered around that fiber, those fiber filled foods, and in those glorious variety of colors and in all the ways that they come in: veggies, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, all the different kinds of plants that we can eat. There's estimated to be around 100,000 varieties of plants that we can eat. So this is a way of eating about abundance, and take advantage of that. Eat that variety of colors, which also makes sure that you're covering, so many of your micronutrients. So quick review: eat those fiber-filled foods, get in a variety of them, manage that stress, make sure to move your body every day, and avoid those harmful substances, including those things we call food that aren't actually food. I just wanted to share quickly my story because this is a subject near and dear to my heart. So this is us before, my adorable husband and myself, and this is us during, because there is no after. This is something that we do from now on. That's why we call it a lifestyle. So I didn't even know my stomach issues were something I could fix. I was just trying to save my life with respect to my blood pressure. And within 5 weeks, after suffering for 35 years, within 5 weeks, my stomach issues were corrected by transitioning to a plant-based diet. You can have significant impact on your health by changing what you eat. And it can be a little bit at a time. It doesn't have to be all in. It can absolutely be a little bit at a time. Just get more of that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. That was beautiful, beautiful. Especially to end on that note with your story. And you mentioned just to get more of the good stuff, right? Jay and I oftentimes will teach to, one of the terms we use is crowding. It's as simple as it sounds. You crowd out the bad with the good, right? So you just put more and more good stuff on your plate, less and less bad. And over time, you're getting more and more of the good stuff. So Jay, we have a couple questions here, and then I'm going to run through my presentation pretty quick. It was planned for 10 minutes, so it'll be a little quicker than that. And then our keynote, Dr. David Lowe, will be on last. So Jay, a couple questions, please. People often hear about a low Fodmap diet. It's a low fiber diet. When it was started, it was, and oftentimes it's recommended by especially the gastroenterologist. When it was started, it was supposed to be done for 3 weeks, kind of an elimination diet. But I know I see, and I'm sure a lot of us see people that are on this diet long term because it helps with their GI symptoms. What would you recommend to someone who has been on a low FODMAP diet?
Okay, so you answered part of it right in your question. That is, this is a short-term solution to some people's issues. It sort of got a little bit sexy there for a bit. It was kind of broad stroke recommended to everyone. It's actually not recommended. And but if you've been on a low FODMAP diet, then there are strategies that we should probably use to bring you back up to where you need to be. But this low FODMAP diet is you are missing key nutrients. Fiber, as you know, myself and everyone else before me has mentioned, is an incredible nutrient for protecting us. We need it to protect us. We need it to feed those good gut microbes. We need it to keep our cholesterol down, our blood pressure down, to help to regulate the way that our food is absorbed. I mean, there's so many reasons we want to make sure that fiber stays high. And when we eliminate all of those foods, like nightshades are something that people avoid, right? So those are high nutrient foods. Those you are depriving yourself of some amazing nourishment. But if you have been off of those foods for a bit, then we might want to gradually increase them. But really what we want to do is we want to see the fact that it reproves the symptoms does not mean it's healing the underlying cause. We want to heal the underlying cause by increasing those good foods to, heal that gut lining, to increase the health of our microbiome. And then, but it might require that we gradually include those back in.
Awesome. Okay, and we have a question here, which I'm curious if you find that some of your patients are reactive to high lectin foods, like nightshades.
Oh, that's so funny. It just came up. So, no, that's not something that that happens on a regular basis. Occasionally, someone will have an issue, but again, the symptom is something that you can treat by not eating those things, possibly, potentially. But the problem is that you're not healing the underlying issue. So we want to heal the underlying issue. I'm not talking about allergies or anything like that. That is different. So it's a very different response when it comes to an allergy. Then we want to avoid those things. But we really do want to deal with the underlying issue. Now, when it comes to lectins, again, this is one of those things that kind of got sexy there for a little bit. There were a few advocates out there saying, take these supplements in order to protect you against the lectins. But it wasn't founded, it really wasn't supported in the science. So there are people that have sensitivities to certain issues. Let me give you a specific example. This girl right here. So before I transitioned to plant-based, I was having trouble with tomatoes. They were giving me heartburn, and I actually quit eating tomatoes. I hadn't even really intended to reintroduce them because I thought I just couldn't eat tomatoes. But after going plant-based, I've never had a trouble with eating tomato again. So it's about healing that underlying issue. Now, everybody's situation is different, and you must customize your nutrition to your underlying issues. But nobody should be avoiding lectins for the sake of avoiding lectins.
Wonderful. And to be a little bit more direct about it, I know there's been one doctor who's been very huge in the media, recommending that people avoid lectins, and he has very expensive supplements that you can buy to help block lectins. That is a sales tactic. That is not science. So I know Jay mentioned that, but just to be really crystal clear. Last question, and if we could do it fast, please, but it's important enough. Broccoli sprouts, you mentioned those. Can you tell us why broccoli sprouts are popular?
I love broccoli sprouts. So we already know the broccoli is awesome, right? We already know that. But broccoli sprouts, so whenever you start to, well, it doesn't always happen this way, but for greens, for sure. The younger that you eat them, the more potent they are. And when it comes to broccoli sprouts, they are like multiple times more powerful in terms of their potency, in terms of health protection as a sprout. So if you could get in some broccoli sprouts, or if you're trying to do other kind of microgreens and other kinds of green leafy sprouts, I highly recommend it. They are much more potent in their health protective factors. And so there's something about eating them miniaturized that really ups their their protection.
Yes, and especially the sulforaphane's part of them, right? Really helpful in cancer protection.
By a lot.